Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Burkhead's Bullpen here on MajorLeagueFishing.com. We're sitting alongside this morning one of the best anglers out there, Jason Christie. And Jason, last year you were so hot, I don't think anybody wanted to fish against you. You were winning on both sides of both tours. You got involved in Major League Fishing last year. The year 2014 was a good year for you.
Yeah, it was excellent. You know, it seemed like every decision I made that year was the right decision. I could pull in any stop and catch a big one or a limit. You know, it was decision making, and I wish that I wish I could have bottled that up and carried it around with me the rest of my career. But it was a good year, you know.
It was a good year. You got your baptism into Major League Fishing last year, and I always think when new guys have come into the format, into Major League Fishing, that it takes an event for them, at least one round, sometimes an entire event, to kind of figure out what's going on. Was that the case for you?
Definitely was. You know, the first MLF event I fished was local around my house, and I'd watched the shows. I mean, I'm a fan of the show myself, even though I participate in it. And I was going to try to reinvent the wheel. You know, I see that numbers is the game in MLF, and I wanted to do it with 5-pounders. And I learned really quick that that's not the game. This is not a bass tournament like we're used to fishing. This is an event where you have to get a lot of bites to win. And it took me a couple of periods to figure it out. And since then, I've made, you know, I feel like I'm doing the right thing. I kind of got a little plan every tournament where I want to fish baits that I get a lot of bites and potentially still catch big ones. You know, I still may flip, but I'm going to flip smaller baits where, it's just, I may crank, but I'm going to fish a little bit smaller stuff to where I can get a lot of bites.
Yeah, it's not that the big fish DNA that so many of you guys have within you because of your work on either FLW Tour or the Bassmaster Elite Series Tour. It's not that big fish don't matter, that they don't come to play.
Right.
It's just that if you spend an hour to catch one 5-pounder, or a guy that catches 5 1-pounders, he's done the same amount of good on the Score Tracker Live leaderboard. So you're still looking for the big fish, but you can't do it at the expense of catching fish, right?
Right, and the thing is, if you're fishing for big ones, you know, big one's more of a loner. You know, you're one here or one there. If you're getting a lot of bites, you're actually developing something that's going to last for 3 periods. You know what I mean? You figure out a way to get a lot of bites, and usually that's going to last the rest of the day. If you figure out a way to catch a big one, usually that's not going to, you know, you're not going to catch a big one. You know, that's why it doesn't take 30 pounds to win every tournament that we go to, even though there's 30 pounds that lives there. So you just have to, it works both ways. I want to develop a plan and be able to run something the entire day, not just catch a big one.
And when you got involved in Major League Fishing, you mentioned the very first tournament and how you kind of learned, and there was a learning curve of progression. I've often thought that guys have to spin out a little bit before they understand the pressure aspect of it. It's not just a different format. There's a level of pressure that you don't have on the other tours because you're not really aware, unless they're right next to you, what the other guy's doing until you get to the weigh-in stage. So how do you deal with the pressure of the Score Tracker Live leaderboard just singing, and you know you're either with the guys catching them or, man, I'm falling behind?
Yeah, it's funny because I can sit here and tell the fans and you how much pressure there is, and they're like, we've heard that. You know, they don't know. I mean, in a bass tournament, in the Bassmasters Classic, you have an 8-hour day, and actually there's a couple of hours of that, an hour and a half, that there's things going on. You're catching fish. The rest of the time's really a dead time. You know, you're just going down the bank. Well, in Major League Fishing, there is no dead time, because even if you're not catching them, somebody else is, and the only way there's not any pressure is if you got a 20-pound lead, and that just don't happen a lot, you know, with the guys that we fish against. In dealing with it, you know, I've really learned that you just have to kind of tune it out, and it's hard because they set the show up to make us have pressure. I mean, live leaderboard, you know, it's not just coincidence they say that. They want to say that to see you spin out. And you know, the first event I ever fished, I kind of spun out some. I mean, I'm competitive, and I especially didn't want to get beat around my house, but I did. I kind of lost it, but I learned a lot from it. You know, every spin out that you have, you know, you can take that positive or negatively, and I learned something, and it's helped me each event after that. But there is extreme. I think the next thing we need on the show is a blood pressure cuff on your arm with that in the screen showing how much stress there is, because it's like nothing else. I mean, it's really cool, and it almost makes you like a kid again. You know, you're from here to there.
Well, speaking of from here to there, we're filming this during the middle of the 2015 Major League Fishing season. And we've already got one Geico Select event under our belts this summer, and that was a pretty special event from you. You talk about from here to there. You literally, in the course of one period, went from the bottom of the heap. I think you might have had one fish for the day, and you were way out of the lead, and you had the period of all periods. It may have been the single greatest period. It certainly was the single greatest comeback in Major League Fishing history. It was amazing because you went from zero to hero in a little more than an hour's time. Tell us about that.
Well, I got goosebumps now talking about it, because you know, it was a really important day, and not only just for that day or just for Major League Fishing. I gained so much confidence in myself that day for the rest of my career. I learned that the tournament's not over until the whistle blows, and what happened that day was, in the ride around, I got to seeing some millful, and there was a combination of two things that kept me in that millful for 2 hours. And one, it looked so good, and we were on a clear body of water, and I wanted to fish to my strengths. And the other thing was Todd Faircloth was leading. Well, Todd's known as a grass fisherman, so I'm sitting there, and I get a bite right off the bat. And you were right, I had one fish weighed 1 pound 7 ounces. I'll never forget it. But Todd's catching them, and I know, well, he's in the grass, or I had a pretty good hint. And so I stayed, and finally, the beginning of the third period, I told myself, I got to try something way different. And I made a long run up to the end of our zone. We had a pretty small zone, but I made a long through a no wake zone and got way up there. And when I shut down, I looked at the water temperature, and it actually had increased. And I thought it would decrease. And everything was stagnant, and immediately I was like, and I think I had an hour and a half left, maybe 2 hours, and I'm just kind of going through the motions, and I'm thinking about, I'm in last place. I'll be able to leave tomorrow. I'll be home to see the kids, and I got a bite, and then I got another bite. Well, then the goal is I want to finish fourth just so I can fish another day. Well, I got to that fourth position, and then I remember I got like 7 pounds behind Todd with maybe 30 minutes left to go, and I told my camera guy, I said, man, if I could catch a big one, I can make a run at this thing. And I didn't catch a big one, but I caught a decent fish. And I'll never forget this. I was 3 pounds out. I was 3 pounds behind Todd with 15, 20 minutes left, and I catch a good one. And automatically I'm thinking, this is it. Well, he weighed 2 pounds, 15 ounces, 1 ounce back. And I had like 7 or 8 minutes left. And when I weigh that fish, I look over and there's a log jam. And I look at my guys and I say, I'm going to win on that log jam right there. It was just perfect. It was like, it was heaven just shining and saying, come fish here. And I pull over there and I catch a fish that puts me in the lead, and I catch a fish that gives me a cushion, and the whistle blows. And that's the most emotional learning experience that I've ever had, because like you said, I had counted myself out, and whenever you count yourself out, it's over. I had counted myself out, and to in the last minute to take that, I can't wait to see the show, because not only me, I want to see Todd. I want to see what he went through, because it was a great day. And like I said, 10 years from now, when I'm in another event, the Classic on the last day, and I'm having a rough day, I can always look back to that day and say, remember that? I only needed an hour to come back, and that'll always give me some confidence to fish till the end.
Last year Scott Suggs was able to win a day on the Select side of things, and we're talking about the Select side of things, the Geico Select Major League Fishing circuit, if you will.
Right. And
it's a little different than the Cup level events that are going to happen later this year, in that while you can advance to one more day, it's not about being in the top 4, the top half like it is at the Cup level. You got to win.
Right.
To get a spot in the Cup level, you've got to win, where the only day you have to win at the Cup level is the final day, the championship day, as long as you can stay far enough into the mix to continue to advance.
Right.
So by winning, you automatically gain entrance into the Cup
Yeah, and that's awesome. I get to go fish against, Van Dam and Evers and Hackney and Biffle. And that's why I'm here. Whenever I got into the Select event, it wasn't about any other thing than qualifying for those events and potentially being in those events full time. That's why I'm here. It's great to win and get trophies and things like that, but the main goal for me is to be there. And like you said, there's no other place than second. Than first. You have to win to get there, and that's why it was important for me to win that event. I was kind of wanting, at one point, just give me fourth, just give me third, and then to come back and win. That's why we're here.
Let me ask you one final question, and that's this. You've had a stellar career. You're one of the hottest anglers on the planet. You're one of the most successful anglers in the history of the sport. You've won on the FLW side. You've won on the Bassmaster Elite Series side. Where did that day rank in terms of your career accomplishments?
Well, it was way up there. If not, it was by far the best single day that I've had, and I say that because of what it hopefully does for me in the future. Like I said, I can always look back on that day, and everybody talks, hey, don't give up till the, but nobody, a lot of people really haven't experienced that. Well, I can say now I've experienced that. An hour to go from last place to first place with a camera in the boat, and I think just having that, in my gun belt on down is going to help me, and so I have to rank it, way up there. It was fun. Like I said, I can't wait to see the show.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the show either. It is, without question, some of the best footage that we've ever recorded at Major League Fishing, going all the way back to our berth on Lake Amistad. Jason Christie, greatest single period comeback in the history of Major League Fishing. It was epic to watch. For more on Jason Christie and our other Major League Fishing anglers, go to MajorLeagueFishing.com.